So next up, we have an interesting announcement from Anthropic, which is a major AI player and creator of the AI assistant model Claude. They just published kind of an approach to AI safety that could be a really interesting and significant approach moving forward to get safer, better AI outputs. So, in a blog post, they outlined an approach that they're using called constitutional AI. What this means is they give their large language model explicit values determined by a constitution rather than values determined implicitly via large scale human feedback. So basically, this is designed to address the historical limitation in large language models where it kind of learns what's quote unquote right or wrong by what humans determine. And that traditionally determines what we might call the values or principles of how the model behaves. So with this approach, the constitution of an AI model consists of a set of principles that guide its output. So in Claude's case, Anthropic has encouraged the model to avoid toxic or discriminatory outputs, refrain from assisting in illegal or unethical activities, and aim to be helpful, honest, and harmless. And so Anthropic says that this constitution is a living document. And they actually drew it up using various sources, including the UN Declaration for Human Rights, some trust and safety best practices, and some principles proposed by other AI research labs. They also mention that it includes principles to reflect non Western perspectives and values identified through trial and error. So they say, look, this is basically a V1. It can be revised and improved based on further research and feedback. So you're essentially giving a model a set of guidelines that the company infuses into it from the start as to how it should and should not behave versus allowing that behavior to be dictated by human feedback. So first off, I guess, Paul, like, can you outline how big a problem is this that they're trying to solve? It seems like we often get harmful, toxic, or negative results produced by some large language models pretty often.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly one of the largest challenges that generative AI is dealing with is how to do this. And we've talked about this on the show before about OpenAI. It when GPT-3, GPT-4 come out, there's pushback from one, again, we'll think about political sides in the United States because we have to live with it all the time. So you have one side saying, "Oh, it's too woke, it's, this and that." And then the other side, has their own issues with it. And so then OpenAI basically says, listen, eventually you're just gonna be able to tune this thing however you want. And you're gonna be able to have your version of it and you can kind of adjust, how it responds, but we're gonna stop putting the guardrails in ourselves as much. They're gonna put their own in for universally accepted things. But when it comes to anything related to politics or what some may consider facts, it's kind of going to let you have your own run at how it outputs, basically. And so it's a really messy problem to try and control what it says and how it positions people and places and countries and
Mm.
economic beliefs and religious beliefs, like all of these really messy issues that a lot of times as humans we just avoid talking to each other about because we don't want to like cross some line. Well, these things can't do that. You're going to ask them these questions, either because you're trying to figure these things out or you're just trying to challenge the system, but you're going to push it to give you answers. And as these things get better and better and more accurate, people are going to come to rely on them as fact and truth. And so, what is truth? What is fact becomes really, really important. And again, as a society, we have a really hard time deciding what truth and fact is right now.
Mm.
And so, how do you tune a model to give you truth when we can't agree on what it is? And so that's the problem they're having. And so this is a really novel approach, and it's something I've been kind of watching for the last few months is how they're doing this. Now, as a reminder, Anthropic isn't some small player here. They've raised 1.3 billion. Their Series C deck that was talked about in Crunchbase was this one. This was just April 6th. And I think we talked about this on the show. So the pitch deck for their Series C fundraising discloses that they're looking for as much as 5 billion over the next 2 years to take on OpenAI and others, and that they're building what they're calling a frontier model called Claude Next, which is 10 times more capable than today's most powerful AI, but that will require $1 billion in spending over the next 18 months to do it. So, and they're founded by former OpenAI researchers. So they're a major, major player in this space, and I just think it's really worth noting how they're doing this. There's a research paper on kind of the details of how this works, and they just published, which we'll put in the show notes, kind of how the constitutional AI works because they've been kind of guarded about what exactly it's trained on and how it works. So yeah, I think it's a really novel approach and worth paying attention to. And that's the White House meeting we talked about an episode or two ago. The CEO of Anthropic was one of the people at that table with Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI. So again, they're a major company worth paying attention to in this space.
Yeah. So do you anticipate other companies kind of developing their own constitutions for language models? I mean, how would this impact how companies use the models or the outputs they're getting from them?
I could definitely see that. I mean, I think what's going to happen is, again, we touched on open versus closed models, and are you just going to go get an, out of the box model from OpenAI or somebody? Or are you going to actually like train these things on your own? And in most cases, corporations are going to infuse not only their brand guidelines and their own knowledge base, but I could imagine, where you could have your own constitutional AI approach to it, where you're training it on your morals and beliefs and the things you want it to be able to do and say. So, yeah, I think this is again just kind of a developing area and something to pay attention to. And then the other thing I think we touched on is they recently put out an update where you could pre-prompt this thing with 100,000 tokens. Um, so again, tokens are kind of how these work, but that's equivalent of 75,000 words roughly. So basically 1,000 tokens is 750 words and just keep scaling up. So what that means is like when you're using these models, you can actually put 75,000 words into your prompt. So you could take like our book, the marketing artificial intelligence book is 60,000 words.
Hmm.
We could actually give it the manuscript and then like have a conversation with it about that book. Like it can take all of that in. That is a massive leap. And I think just kind of again, an idea of where this is going with being able to, do some pretty incredible stuff where you can actually extract knowledge from all of the content you have, all the show content, all the written content. It's just incredible stuff.
Yeah, that's a super exciting use case and kind of marketing and business, getting a much faster time to knowledge with the books and the resources you engage with.